All right. Good morning. It's 10 a.m. and I think we should begin. So first off, welcome to this class on well-being and success. My name is Raj Raghunathan. I'm from the McComb School of Business at the University of Texas at Austin. And I'll tell you a little bit about my background. Some of you may already know this, but I'm a BITS Pilani alum. I graduated in 1989, long time ago. And I obviously got an engineering degree from there because that's what BITS Pilani was. And now, of course, there's a management school, but I got a chemical engineering degree from BITS Pilani, and then I moved on to IIM Calcutta to get an MBA, and then I got my PhD at New York University, finished in 2000. And I've been a professor of marketing at the McComb School of Business at the University of Texas for 24 years now. All right. So I've had a kind of interesting evolution. I started teaching regular marketing courses in the first couple of years. And then I had this idea to teach a class on happiness. And the reason why I had this idea was because it seemed that this was a very, very important topic. And I don't know if you all can relate to this or agree with this idea that everything we do, the reason why we want to get a good degree, for example, or why we want a good job, or why we want to earn money, etc., is so that we can lead a happier, more fulfilling life, right? Everything seems to be a means to that end. In the end, what we want are good emotions, positive feelings, a feeling that our life has been fulfilling, has been meaningful, etc. And that's why we do a lot of the things that we do. And it seemed that most of the educational institutions around the world kind of ignore this topic of happiness. So I thought to myself that this would be an important topic to study, an important topic to teach. And so that's how I started offering a class on happiness about 15 years ago. In 2009 is when I started. And over the years, there have been quite a few learnings for me. And I want to kind of very quickly go through those learnings and tell you a little bit about, just a minute, why is this not working? The clicker is not working for whatever reason, but I have an alternative clicker. Hopefully this one works. Oh, this one's out of battery. All right, so we're just going to do it the old-fashioned way. I'm going to use my fingers to move ahead. Okay, so there's quite a few things that just a problem, I think, with. Okay, yeah. So there's quite a few things that I've learned in the 15 years that I've taught this course. So it's going to work now. Thank you so much. On. Oh, you need that one. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Roja. Okay, so there seems to be quite a lot of hunger for the topic. When I first started teaching this class on happiness in 2009, it was very new. I was one of the first few people to start teaching a course on happiness in the business school. Since then, a lot of other people have started teaching it. But the hunger for the topic has really exploded. So I got invited to teach an online course, and I taught that course through the Indian School of Business. How many of you applied to the Indian School of Business? And how many of you got into the Indian School of Business and yet chose to come here? No one? Okay. All right. So Indian School of Business seems like it is still kind of, more prestigious or higher profile than BITSoM, but I'm sure that we're going to catch up and overtake them. Okay. So I used to teach this course at the Indian School of Business for 9 years. And in my second or third year there, the dean invited me to offer this course online through a platform called Coursera. How many of you are aware of Coursera? Oh, okay, good. Almost everyone. So for the first 3 or 4 years after the course got released, it was one of the most top performing courses. I had about 5 lakh students enroll in the class. Okay, this is huge, right? I mean, a lot of people. So obviously there's a lot of hunger for the topic. And I have some theories as to why it is that happiness is so important for people now, right? I think that it was always important, but it's become even more important now. I'll just give you a very quick reason for why it is. I think that a lot of us back, like say 200 years ago, even 50, 60 years ago, didn't really have the luxury to think about happiness. You know, we had to kind of make sure that we put food on the table. We were really after, fulfillment of basic needs. But I think there's a large number of people now around the world, especially in developing countries, I would say, like India, who have kind of crossed that threshold of going beyond just access to basic needs, right? And so that's freed us up to think about, okay, what else do I want from life? And then when you think about that question, happiness, of course, turns out to be an important aspiration for a lot of people. Okay, so there's a lot of hunger for the topic. The other thing that I've learned, which is the one that I really want to focus on, and by the way, I'm going to be going relatively fast because this is a short course, right? This is 1.5 hours long per session, only 8 sessions. I teach this course across 40 hours regularly. And there's some chance that I come back to teach a variant of this course in your second year, in which case I will kind of delve deeper into some of the topics that we're going to cover, okay? But this course is going to go really, really fast. And so every session is going to go fast too. I have been accused by some people of speaking fast. I'm probably going to speak even faster than I normally do, okay? Are you guys able to understand me so far? So far, all good? Okay. All right. So the second thing that I've learned is that happiness doesn't just feel good. It's also useful to be happy. We all want to lead a happier life because at some level we are kind of programmed to lead a happy life. Okay. I don't know if you read the book Atomic Habits, which was a required book. How many of you read it? Okay. How many of you did not read it yet? Okay. So I really strongly urge you to read it. It's one of the best books that you'll read. Okay. Those who read it, do you agree with me? Right? It's so useful. It's a fundamental skill that you need to have to understand how to develop a habit. And the reason, very quickly, the reason why habits are so important is because once you have a habit, it'll just take you to the destination. It's like getting on a boat and sleeping on the boat, on a train, okay? So you don't have to do much work because the habit, if it's a good habit, will take you to your destination, okay? The important thing or the difficult thing often is to develop the habit. And that's where the book comes in. It really tells you how to develop a habit, right? What are the ways in which you can remove some of the obstacles that keep us from something becoming a habit? Like, for example, working out. Like, for example, eating healthy food. Like, for example, thinking positive thoughts, right? But once you have these habits, you don't have to really struggle. You don't have to work hard. You're on autopilot, so to speak, right? And so that'll take you to your destination. Anyway, so in the book, in one of the chapters, he talks about how what we ultimately need are emotions, what we are looking for are emotions. Gayatri, by the way, a little bit later, I'm going to tell everyone to not use your digital devices, okay? So just so you know, this is not to kind of penalize you. I know that you're taking notes, right? And some of you might be actually very good at taking notes on your digital devices. But what I've discovered over time is that once I allow one person to do it, then other people want to open up their devices too, and soon somebody somewhere gets tempted to look at Facebook or social media or do some other work or email. And then before you know it, it spreads like a disease, okay, across the room, and everyone's on it. And it just kind of lowers the quality of everyone's learning, okay? But because I'm not going to allow digital devices, what I'm going to do is have Roja Roy here. I'm going to introduce her in just a moment. Print the hard copies of the slides for every session. And if you just like pass it to the back, we appreciate it. So you can take your notes old-fashioned style. It's a bit of a compromise. It's not the ideal solution, but I think it's a better solution than to have you all be on your devices. Okay. So just pass it around, pass it to the back. Just keep one copy. All right. So this is how we are going to do it in this class. Okay. Did I read my right? All right. So in one of the chapters, he talks about how eventually what we're looking for are emotions, right? So this is very much along the lines of this idea that happiness, we seek happiness because, it's almost axiomatic, right? That is that you don't need an explanation for why it is that we seek happiness. We like to feel good. We're programmed to feel good. It's like why we want sweet things, right? To eat. Why? Because it tastes good. That's it. It stops there, right? We want to feel happy because it feels good. But here's the thing. In the last 15 years, there has been a lot of research, particularly in the last 15 years, right? A lot of research showing that happiness doesn't just feel good. It's also useful to be happy. So I'll just very quickly go through some ways in which being happy is useful, and then we'll delve a little bit deeper into these aspects later on in the session. Okay, so this area of research, by the way, is called functionality of happiness. And what we find is that happier people are healthier. Okay, happier people have better functioning immune systems, better functioning respiratory systems, better functioning cardiovascular systems. Happier people just end up also living longer. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about it a little bit later. Why is that important, do you think, in organizational contexts, for example? Why is it important that happier people are healthier? Yeah, Bhumika? Right. So if you're healthier, you're going to show up for work more often, right? So in fact, one study showed that happier people show up for work 16 more days in a year than their less happy counterparts. Okay. So I think Woody Allen said showing up is 80% of the work done. Okay, and Atomic Habits talks about it. Do you guys remember in what context he talks about this idea that just show up? There is a rule that he talks about. There's the number 2 associated with it. What is it? 2-minute rule. Yeah. 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 Right. So if you just do it and do it for say 1 week, all you do is change your gym clothes, go to the gym, look at the equipment, maybe do 1 round of bicep curls, and that's it, right? But just doing that reinforces it as a habit. Okay, so in this context, happier people are healthier and therefore they show up for work more often. If you just show up, you're probably going to work more and therefore it's probably going to affect your productivity. Okay. Happier people are more collegial, right? And this is probably intuitive. Have you guys started working in your groups? Okay. Hopefully you like your teammates, right? And hopefully you also find them to be happy people. Because if you do, then you're going to want to continue to be motivated to work with them, right? We like to hang around with happy people. We don't like people who are complaining all the time, who are Debbie Downers. No offense to Debbie's out there, but so if you're somebody who's constantly pulling a long face and you're criticizing things and oh me, poor me, life was so unfair to me, that person did this to me. You don't want to hang out with such people, right? So that's been shown in the research too, that people want to partner with happier people, and happy teams outperform less happy teams. Okay, happier people are more creative, more objective. Some of my own research shows that, and I'll delve into that in a little bit as well. So basically, there's a lot of reasons why happiness improves your productivity, and therefore, if you thought that, okay, I want to be happy because being happy makes me feel good, that's a good reason, but there's an excellent reason for why it is that you should prioritize happiness. It is going to really improve your chances of success in the real world. Okay, how many of you want to succeed in the real world? All right. Okay, if you don't have your hands up here, Nishant, okay, don't just raise it because I'm asking you to raise it. Okay, I think that you really shouldn't be joining BITSoM if you don't want to be successful, honestly, right? I mean, that's one of the primary reasons you guys joined BITSoM. Okay, so in organizational contexts, what's being shown is that happier organizations, right? So you can survey organizations, find out how happy the employees are. Let's say at one of the Aditya Birla Group companies, right? And you can take another company, the same industry, right? And look at the happiness of those employees in that organization. Okay, whichever organization has happier employees is going to be more profitable. That's what the research finds. On average, they're going to be about 10% more profitable than less happy organizations. All right, so I've given you a little bit of the history of the course and the genesis of the course. I'll turn now to Roja and ask her to introduce herself. Yes, go ahead and tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from. How many of you guys know Roja, by the way? All right, okay. So only about 3 people. So really, you have to introduce yourself to the rest of the group.
Hi all, I'm Roja Roy and I'm from Kerala, basically from Amity. I'm here in BITSoM for the last 1.5 years and I'm assisting courses with economic courses and also for WAS courses. And previously I have worked with IEM Code for 2 years in economics area, maybe micro and micro. So I'll see you for other courses also. Welcome to BITSoM. Thank you.
Thank you, Roja. I'm really happy to have, how about a round of applause for Roja. I was very confused when she first wrote to me saying that my name is Roja Roy. I was totally expecting a Bengali, you know. And then I saw her and then I started talking to her and then I realized she doesn't speak like a Bengali. You know, I went to IIM Calcutta, so and I grew up all over India because my father was in the railways. Actually, we traveled by train from Bangalore to Kalyan yesterday. Okay, 24-hour train ride. I hadn't done it in a very long time. I wanted to do it for nostalgia's sake, and he's with me. Both my father and my parents are with me. Anyway, so I've spent a lot of time all over India, and I think that I know accents in India, and her accent did not sound like a Bengali accent to me. So then I asked her, and then she said, there's quite a few Roys in Kerala. Okay, it turns out. Okay, Christians, but Roys. Anyway, so very happy to have her, and it's been wonderful to work with her. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is kind of like give you guys a little bit of an idea of the syllabus, what's in it, what the course objectives are, you know, how the grading works, and so on. And if you have any questions, please raise your hand and feel free to ask. Okay. By the way, just a little bit of a heads up. We are not going to have participation points for excellent comments or good comments, etc. In a large class like this, if I incentivize you to speak, right, and give you grades because you know your comments are going to be graded, then usually there's a deluge of comments and I'm not able to get through the class. Okay, so I've just removed that component. Just merely showing up for class, right? Every single guy, if you come to every session, basically 8 sessions, you're going to get your full class participation points. Okay. All right, so let's look at the syllabus. What can you expect from the course? So the main idea is to help you understand why it's important, why it's useful to be happy. Okay, I want to make BITSoM the happiest MBA program in the world. Okay, not because you know it's just a nice fluffy thing to do. It's because I know that if you're happier, you're going to be more successful. If you're happier, you're going to be better human beings. You're going to be more ethical. You're going to be more compassionate. Okay, there's a lot of research showing that all of these good things come from people who are happier. Okay, so when BITSoM started, I don't know if you all know this, I'm on the governing council for BITSoM, and so they consulted me on what it is that I would suggest to make this program more effective, different from other programs that exist out there. And 2 things that I said is that I think that it would be useful to have the students take courses that are not just in the functional areas like finance or marketing and accounting, etc., but also life skills. Okay, and that's what you're getting through the WAS courses. Okay, and the second thing that I said is that it'd be nice to have a diversity of people rather than just engineers. You know, I went to BITS Pilani, I got an engineering degree. When I went to IIM Calcutta, 85% of the students were engineers. Okay, and I think it's too much. Okay, nothing wrong with engineers. I love engineers. Okay, but I think that it's nice to have diversity and some people from liberal arts backgrounds, maybe even the medical background, and so on and so forth. Okay, so anyway, so back to this. I want to prioritize well-being and happiness because I think that if you, in general, have a good idea of how to lead a happy life, and you know, you may already be doing it, but if it gets reinforced here, and from now on out, your trajectory is going to be a happier trajectory than it would have been had you not taken this course, then I think that my goal is really accomplished. Okay, so that's one. And in order to achieve that goal, obviously, okay, you have to have some idea of the conceptual background of how different things influence our happiness levels. And in this course, I'm going to talk mainly about influence of lifestyle, relationships, which are very, very important for us. And you're all starting out at BITSoM, and you're going to form so many beautiful friendships here. And this is the start of a relationship journey too, right? Not just a journey that's career-oriented and professional, but also personal. And then finally, of course, we're going to talk a little bit about work, okay? Intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. So if you don't understand these terms, these are not clear, etc., don't worry. We're going to delve deep into those in the rest of the sessions. And then the final thing is to help you formulate a practical and personalized action plan for improving your well-being. Okay, so you can think about this as the outcome, okay? We want this as the outcome. We want you to be happy and to prioritize happiness. And in order to achieve the outcome, you need some knowledge, okay? And we can think about this as the process, okay? If you want to think about it in terms of the terms used in the book Atomic Habits, it talks about outcomes, right? And then processes that lead to outcomes. And then in the end, you know, center of it all is identity, right? So if you want to use the analogy of gym, right? You want to go to the gym because you want to look good, or you want to lose weight, or you want to reduce body fat percentage. By the way, speaking of body fat percentage, how many of you did the medical test? All right, good. Thank you so much for doing it. You're the first guinea pig experimental batch that I'm having you do this, okay? And my objective is to see if through the course, right, your these numbers improve. All right, and I have a lot of confidence that it will. Particularly, you know, if you can continue to do some of the things that I'm going to recommend that you do for a few weeks, okay? But even in the 2 weeks that we have here, I'm hoping that some of these numbers you can see an improvement. All right, so this is the process. These are the outcomes, and then hopefully in you know, sustaining that process and making it a habit, your identity also starts to change. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about those things later. Okay, so what are the course tools? So first of all, this topic of happiness is so important that, you know, there are various kind of avenues for you to pursue it, right? And typically what we do is that we look at this topic of happiness. So for example, if you want to lead a happier life, or we're feeling stressed out and we don't know how to deal with it, we generally tend to go to, you know, our friends or elders in our family, maybe religious leaders, etc. And the way in which this course is different is that this is going to be entirely scientific, okay? So nothing wrong with going to friends, nothing wrong with going to your elders or to religious leaders. I'm sure that a lot of them have a lot of good advice, okay? The advice or the suggestions, the tips, the conclusions that I'm going to come to in this class are going to be different in the sense that they're going to be based entirely on scientific findings, okay? And I'm a bit of a skeptic, so I've always been kind of scientifically minded. And if there are some skeptics out here, I think that you'll like this approach to be a little bit better. If you're not a skeptic, I think what it'll do, I think, is that it'll reaffirm some of the things that you intuitively already know or feel are going to be contributors to your happiness. Okay, so that's number one, course tools. Second is readings and resources. How many of you finished both the pre-work assignments that I had for you? All right, so you read the Guardian article, you also saw the TED Talk. All right, so Anushka, what did you get from the TED Talk? What is the one thing that stood out for you?
They talk about failure, rejection, and loneliness that are like things that can make you unhappy. Okay. And loneliness is something that can reduce your lifespan as well.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's wonderful. Anybody else? What did you get out of it? Yeah, Mahia? Is Mahia?
Yeah, it's Mahia.
Okay.
So it talks about that we often are very, we look after our physical health a lot, but we miss out on the.
That's right. So that's probably the central idea of the whole thing is that, you know, that's why it's called emotional hygiene, right? So we practice physical hygiene. Even a 4-year-old child knows to put a Band-Aid on, you know, when it gets hurt and gets a bruise, but even older people, adults, may not know how to kind of fix their emotional problems, right? Because we have relegated this topic to the sidelines and even kind of look down upon people who are suffering emotionally and think that there's something wrong with them, right? Just, you know, just get out of it, is what we tell them, right? So in a sense, this course kind of like brings this topic that is generally ignored, generally stigmatized, front and center, okay? So, all right, so we're going to have you guys read readings and also look at some videos, etc., through this course. And then maybe the most important one is the happiness exercises and assignments. All right, and I'll talk a little bit about what those assignments are in just a moment. So here are the grades and the grade allocations across the various deliverables. So class participation is number one, and I'll talk about it first, and then I'll get to the other three. So in terms of class participation, all these sessions count. We have 8 sessions. So if you come to 7 out of 8 sessions, so for whatever reason you do not come to one session, maybe there's an emergency or you just slept, it doesn't matter, okay? You don't have to do anything special. You don't have to tell me, Professor, I'm going to be missing this session because one thing has come up or another thing has come up. Because if you attend 7 sessions and you're there on time, right? And I'm a stickler for punctuality, I'm going to begin on the dot. So if you're on time, then you're going to get the full 15 points. You don't need to speak. You don't need to do anything special. All right. If you come to all 8 sessions on time, and this is a little bit different from what I had before, Roja. Okay. So I'll kind of like coordinate with you a little bit later, but to show up all sessions on time is important for me. Okay. If you do miss, I'll tell you what happens, coming in on time. Then you get a 1 bonus point. Is it here? Bonus point for showing for all 8 sessions on time. And if you are going to miss more than 1 session, then I would suggest that you tell us at least 24 hours in advance, right? Sometimes you may not have that luxury because it's an emergency that struck just before class. Just inform us, okay, if that happens, if you miss more than 1 session. All right, and then depending on the emergency and the proof that you have for it, we will consider giving you the point for that session. Okay, so here's how Roja is going to grade you guys. So she already has a Google sheet with all your names, and it's been filled in with 1s. I should say for 2s actually, as a default. So the assumption is that everyone's going to show up on time, and so you get full 2 points. But if you come in late, first of all, if you're absent, then she's going to look at those who are absent. I assume some people are absent today. All right, so they're going to get 0 points. And then coming more than 2 minutes late to class, you'll get 0.5 points deducted. Okay, it doesn't mean that you wait until 2 minutes to come in, okay? But we just want to kind of let people settle in. And if you're distracted by a phone or a device, this is very important, right? So, Arman, I don't know if you're looking at your phone. No, okay, good. So yeah, we're going to kind of be looking out for people who are not looking up, okay? And you will get a warning first time around. And then after that, we'll start deducting points. Okay, so if you do come on time, you'll get 2 points. But if you're distracted by a phone or a device, then you get 1.5 points only. All right. Any questions about this? Okay. And then the last 2 sessions, they are going to be the final project group presentation sessions. We will actually double all of these points. And so if you are fully present in class on time, you'll get 4 points. If you come to class but are distracted by a phone, then you get 3 points and so on. Okay, that's with regard to the class participation. I want to talk a little bit about the quizzes. So we are going to have 3 quizzes. So this session has a quiz, all right? And sessions 4 and 5 also have quizzes. And all of these quizzes count, and each quiz is worth 10 points. And there'll be no makeup if you miss the quiz, just unfortunate. If you missed it, now, of course, if there's a valid reason for missing the quiz, then we will talk about it. But as a default, I'm not thinking of having a makeup for the quizzes that you missed. And the quiz at the end of class, for example, today's quiz is going to be on material that we covered in today's class. Okay, so you don't have to kind of retain this across sessions. It's more like an attention check to make sure that you've got the big points that we discussed in class. Each quiz will have 8 short questions, 8 multiple choice questions, actually, and you'll have 5 minutes to answer all these questions, okay? And you'll see that the 5 minutes are more than ample for you to answer the questions if you've been paying attention. If you have not been paying attention, it's a different story. But if you've been paying attention, it should be relatively easy to answer all these questions. And you'll take the quiz on LMS, and you can see how you did in the quiz after you submit all the answers, okay? So if for whatever reason there's connectivity issues, you're not able to get on LMS, etc., within 30 seconds, I would suggest that you raise your hand and tell us that you're having a problem. We have hard copies of the quiz, and so we'll give you the quiz as a hard copy. You can take it on that hard copy. Okay. All right. So with that, let's do a little bit of a sample quiz. So take out your devices. Okay. So this is an exception to the rule. right? So right now I'm going to allow you to take your devices out, and I'm going to have you do a sample quiz which has 2 questions only. And the idea of having you do the sample quiz is to make sure that everything works, right? Technology-wise, everything works. The questions on the quiz are going to be approximately the same level of difficulty of the actual questions in the real quiz, right? But the real quiz will have more questions, obviously, and some of the questions on the real quiz may be a little bit more difficult, more tricky, okay? All right, so with that, have you published the quiz, Roja? Okay, she's published the quiz. She's going to give you 2 minutes to take this, okay, which you'll discover is more than enough time. You don't.
I'm not carrying my laptop.
Okay, all right, so in the future, do bring your laptop, all right? You cannot access it through your phone either. Yeah, you can do it through your phone.
It's in use.
It's not there under quiz? Is there anyone who's able to access it? No? Okay, so this is precisely why I wanted to do this, just to make sure that you're able to access it. Where was it? Under what? It's in quizzes. So those of you who are not able to access it under quiz, obviously there's something missing. Either you're in a different course or you're not registered for this course. Maybe you never joined BITSoM. I'm just kidding. So you still aren't able to see it. Oh, you are able to see it. Okay. Oh, you got it now. Okay. Maybe there's just a little bit of a time lag for some of you to get it.
Not authorized.
Not what? You're not authorized?
Yeah.
Why might that be? You're also not authorized. Okay. How many of you are not authorized? Raise your hand. Okay, this is a large group. Okay, so this is a big problem. We need to figure out a solution to this problem, Roja. You think you can solve this problem, Roja, or do you think you need somebody else's help? Okay. Okay. Okay, but you're going to see the students then? Okay, so you're going to go ask somebody else to come? Okay, good, great. Do one more thing, just get more hard copies of the actual quiz, okay? Get, I don't know, 40, I would say, right? So let's do a very quick count, guys. How many of you are not authorized? All right, this actually seems like more than 40 to me, right? What do you guys think? Probably 50 people. Okay, let's do the reverse, right? How many of you are authorized? Okay, like about 30% authorized and about 70% not. All right, Roja, so do get hard copies, okay? Nevertheless, even if you do solve the problem, I think it's important that you get hard copies. Okay, so let's look at the answers. There were 2 questions. Okay, first question was this. Happiness doesn't just feel good, it's also dash to be happy. Functional to be happy. Okay, so this is the area that's called functionality of happiness. So B is the right answer, B as in boy. All right, and the second question, the answer is what? 10%. Okay, so I showed 9% and 10% is the closest to 9%. All right. Okay, any questions about either of these? Okay, all right, so let's go to the third component of the grading scheme. So this is a healthy lifestyle. Yes.
Point.
Mm-hmm.
How is organizations?
Okay, I'm going to get to that question in just a little bit. Okay, toward the end of today's session, I'll get to that question. But it's a very good question. Okay, so healthy lifestyle. If you want to be happy, right? leading a healthy lifestyle is non-negotiable, particularly when you get older. Okay, particularly when you get to be around my age, right? Or even actually a little bit younger. Okay, I'm 57 almost. Okay, so if you get to be around 40, 45, you really have to start watching what you eat. You really have to start exercising more. You really have to stop being stressed out. You really have to get your good night's sleep. Okay, all of those things become much more detrimental to your health if you're not watchful of those things. At this age, right, I think you have a little bit of leeway because your body is just young, right? But if you continue to do some of the things that are detrimental to your body later on, then it's really going to start to affect your body badly. And the important thing is that you shouldn't wait until you get to be that age in order to start leading a healthy lifestyle. Why? Because habits, right? Habits are so difficult to break, extremely difficult to break. And so if you get on the wrong treadmill, so to speak, right, of a bad habit, if you get yourself addicted to, by the way, Shreyas, I mentioned no laptops, right? You guys remember? So this is going to be a first warning. All right, so you two, please put it away. I think if you have it in front of you, there's going to be a temptation to continue to use it, right? We've stopped using it. Just please put it away. You're really going to have to watch out for your lifestyle as you get older. And now is the time to begin your acquisition of healthy habits so that, you know, you don't have to think about it later on. All right. And, you know, you will see, I'm not going to ask you to do anything like huge and drastic. Okay, this is again consistent with the 2-minute rule, is that I'm going to have you guys choose something to do that you can quite easily manage. The important thing is regularity. Okay, just take one small bite of a healthy lifestyle, whatever it is. Okay, I'm going to let you choose. So that's what that is going to be about. We'll talk about it a little bit later. And then the final deliverable is this project where you'll be presenting. Have you all had an opportunity to already present in another class? Okay, good. Okay, so that's a very, very important skill to have. Obviously, you're going to be presenting a lot in the future to groups, to boards, and so on and so forth. And every time you practice, you get a little bit better at it. Okay, so I'll tell you what the Creative Altruism project is later on. Okay, so we're going to now spend just a little bit of time talking about some frequently asked questions. And after that, I will get into the third item on our agenda, which is to discuss the main topic for today, okay, or topics for today. Okay, so first question that I'm asked often is, when will the assignments be returned? So in this course, you have 2 assignments, the healthy lifestyle, which is due after the last day of class. Okay, because I want to give you enough time to lead a healthy lifestyle. You're not going to see immediate effects, right? In fact, even 2 weeks is really not long enough, but 2 weeks is better than, you know, 1 week. So because the assignment is going to be turned in after the last day of class, we will turn in the grades probably 4 or 5 days after it, maybe up to a week after it. I'll have to coordinate with Roja to find out how quickly she can go through it. And the other assignment is the final project, which is due on the last 2 days of class. And that one doesn't involve a report. We will grade you as you finish your presentation. And that one should be a little bit quicker for us to get back to you with the grade. We'll probably get back to you with your grade by Monday or Tuesday. So this will be August 12th, I believe. Okay, or August 30th. In terms of class participation, you should be able to keep track of it as and when each session is over. You know, Roja's not here, but we've already discussed that she can put the grades up pretty much the same day, maximum the next day. And so if you see that, you know, the grades are not reflective of what you deserve. So you came into class, you were on time, but you don't see a 2 there, you only see a 1 or a 0. Please do get back to us. Okay, get back to Roja. She'll be able to resolve that. What can I do to get slides ahead of class? You probably know the answer to this. We will make hard copies. Okay, we're going to have 3 slides per page, and we'll make it double-sided just to kind of reduce the kind of carbon footprint and, you know, killing of trees. I know that this is not an ideal solution, right? I hate it that I have to print it, but I think the trade-off is worth it. That is that this prevents you from being distracted and being on your digital devices. And I think it's more useful for you all to learn the concepts and to focus on class and be engaged rather than necessarily kind of like the harmful effects on the planet. Okay, so what are the books and readings for the course? There's only one required book, Atomic Habits. Please, please, please do read it. Okay, and just kind of picking a tip from the book itself. Use the 2-minute rule, right? Just say, okay, I'm only going to spend 2 minutes reading this book. Set a timer even if you want. Okay, literally 2 minutes. That's all you're going to do today, right? Just read the very first page. Whatever your reading speed is, read as much as you can in those 2 minutes. And then if it kind of like pulls you in, give into it, right? And then read a little bit more. But if it doesn't, you've done your bit, okay? Tomorrow again, just read 2 minutes, okay? See if, that kind of helps you get started. Oftentimes we have the starting trouble, right? But once you get started, there's a momentum associated with that start. Okay, so, so Roja, any updates? Is something with is the problem on their end? Okay, all right. So have you guys taken quizzes on LMS before? Yeah. All right, no. Okay, so some people are saying yes and some people are saying no. You've had it in other countries. No, but like this kind of a thing where in the class you're asked to take a quiz. You haven't done it before. Okay, so there's a high-level delegation going on there. We'll know the outcome of that discussion. Was it aimed toward resolving this issue? And have you managed to resolve it?
So it's giving saying that it's due by 10:40, and since we're off the mark, I think it closes within that window.
I
So
see.
we'll increase the time window.
Okay, so why don't you increase the time window and let's see if some of the people who weren't authorized are able to kind of do it then. Okay. So let us know when you increase the window, Roja. I think this is important to resolve, guys. Okay, so let's just give it a little bit of time. All right, Roja, let us know once you've done it. Okay, you've done it? Yes or no? It's very ambiguous. It's done. Okay, all right. So why don't you guys try one more time? Those who did not get the permissions. It's not, still not. Okay, so that's not the issue, right?
The time is still showing 10:40.
Okay. All right, Roja, just take another 10 minutes to do it. Okay, meanwhile, I'll kind of get into this functionality of happiness. Okay. All right, let's do a very quick exercise, okay, in class exercise. So I'm going to ask you 2 questions. All right, and think of your answer to each of these 2 questions. And the answer to each question is going to be a number between 0 and 100. Okay. All right, this is the first question. Think of all the times when you were unhappy in the past. Okay, maybe you were depressed because your boyfriend or your girlfriend dumped you. Okay, sorry to make you revisit some bad memories. Or maybe you were really stressed out for an exam, right? Or you were really sad because India lost the World Cup, whatever. Okay, so think of a time when you were really unhappy in the past. Okay, and in what proportion of those times, out of 100 times that you were unhappy, what proportion of the times do you now wish that you were not unhappy, right? If you could go back in time and change that unhappiness to maybe less unhappiness or even to happiness, out of those 100 times, how many times would you change it? All right. That's the first question. All right. So here's a second question. Second question is, think of all the times that you were happy in the past, right? Maybe a recent burst of happiness might have happened when you got into BITSoM, right? There definitely would have been other instances, I'm sure, when you were really happy in the past for whatever reason, right? In what proportion of those times do you wish that you were not happy? And you could go back in time and change that happiness into less happiness or even unhappiness. All right. Okay, so now first question first, right? Think of all the times you were unhappy. What proportions of time would you want to change it? Just throw out a number at me. 70%, 80, okay? Huh? 60%? Oh, okay, all right, okay.
100%.
100% is time you don't want to, Nishant, you're my tribe. No, actually, I'd probably say 88% or something, okay, not quite 100%. But I can give you my reasons for why it is that I want to keep some times when I was unhappy as unhappy. But okay, so, I think fair to say the average is probably going to be somewhere in the 70, 80 kind of range. All right, what about the second one? Zero. 10%. Okay, what happened? Were you on drugs? No, okay. What is it? Don't want to repeat? Okay, doesn't want to repeat. All right, that's fair. Okay, so but here I think pretty much other than Anushka, yeah. Do you also have a number other than zero? Okay.
Some of the unhappy moments were like teaching moments, so I.
Okay, that's the first question. So you want to go to the first question?
Yeah, I think.
Okay, first question, so you would say not 100, right?
Yeah.
So some maybe 10, 12%. Okay, good, great. All right, the reason why I want you guys to kind of answer, answer these questions is because I want to kind of highlight again this idea that we want more happiness in our life. We want less unhappiness in our life, right? And this seems like a general truth, a universal truth. Why do we want to be happy? And I think that part of the reason is that it feels good, but the other part is because it's functional to be happy, okay? And I've already talked a little bit about this idea that happier people are healthier. And I want to summarize the results of a very influential study in this area. It's famously called the Nun study. It's by these authors. What they did in the study is they looked at nuns at a monastery. Nuns at a monastery in Massachusetts. So they categorized these nuns into 4 groups. The most happy nuns, then the next set of happy nuns, and then the next set of happy nuns, and then the least happy nuns, okay? So they kind of categorize these nuns into quartiles, as we call them, right? So quarter is like 25%, so into 4 quartiles based on happiness. And the way they did it was they did not ask these nuns how happy you are. They went back and read journal entries that these nuns had made. Now, in this monastery, it was a practice for all the nuns to maintain a journal. Every night, they took out their journal and then wrote in the journal what happened that day. And they might or might not have explicitly referred to how happy they were, but it was pretty easy to kind of figure out how happy they were based on what they wrote, right? If you said, oh, the food was great today, I really enjoyed the little kind of music session that we did, and I feel really one with God, etc., you're obviously happy now. Okay. On the other hand, if you said, the food was really bad, and I don't know why they keep feeding us this bad food, I'm really bored here, I want to get out, but I'm stuck, whatever, you're unhappy now. All right. So I'm going to now show you a graph that has longevity, right, which is age on the x-axis, and then the probability of survival on the y-axis. And these are the 4 quartiles of nuns, okay? And this is the happiest quartile, top 25% happiest nuns. Next quartile, right? This is 50 to 75%. And this is the bottom 2 quartiles. They're very close together. Okay, so I'm going to leave it up for just a second and see if there are any comments, anything that strikes you. What does this tell you? Hyati, you want to venture a guess? I know that you raise your hand. I'm going to get you in just a moment. What does this show you? Yeah, so if you're a happier person, if you're a happier nun, specifically, you're going to survive for longer, okay? It turned out that the average age to which these nuns lived was 83, okay, which is about 5 years older at that point than the average life of an American, right? So if your only aim is to live really long, then it's not a bad idea to join a monastery and become a nun, okay? But the happiest nuns outlived the least happy nuns by a whopping 11 years. Okay, the happiest nuns lived to be on average 94 years old. Okay, now just to give you a little bit of an idea of how big this effect is, right? So Imagine that you smoke a whole pack of cigarettes every single day of your life. Okay, how much less can you expect to live compared to somebody who does not smoke at all? 5 years? Okay, all right. It turns out it's, yeah. A little bit louder, please.
I've studied somewhere. The person who smokes one cigarette will reduce the lifespan of 5 minutes. If you're an active smoker, if you're a passive smoker, it reduces the lifespan by 7 minutes.
Oh, so it's supposed to be a passive smoker. I don't think that's true. But anyway, you can forward that article to me if you find it. Okay. So if you smoke a whole pack of cigarettes a day, you're going to die about 3 years, 4 years earlier than somebody who doesn't smoke. Okay. It's actually a little bit lower than most people guess. All right. How about drinking a whole bottle of whiskey, hard liquor, every single day of your life?
2 years.
2 years. No, you're going to die 7 years earlier. Okay. Whole bottle of whiskey every single day, you're going to die 7 years earlier. Okay. So one way to look at this is that if you're a happier person, then happiness equals smoking plus drinking plus 1 year. Is that what you're asking? Like if I'm happy smoking and drinking, then yeah, so some people kind of like come to that conclusion that, oh, smoking and drinking make me happy. Now, have you had a whole bottle of whiskey any time?
No, not every time.
Not every day. Okay, good. But on the occasion that you did have it,
Yeah.
it made you happy, right? Did it make you happy the next day too?
No.
No. Exactly, that's the problem, right? So you can't really sustain that happiness when you smoke and drink a lot. It might make you happier in the moment, but it definitely pay a big price for it the next day. Okay. So that's the problem with it. That in drugs in general, right? That's the problem is that they kind of like the way that I like to look at it is that they borrow happiness from the future and give it to you right now, right? But you do definitely have to pay for it later. And leading a healthy lifestyle, even though it might be aversive in the moment, if it becomes a habit, then you start to see a lot of benefits from it. And then, those benefits are not just long term. How many of you guys work out on a regular basis? Okay, you're probably, used to kind of that endorphin rush, as they call it, right? Like after you work out, you really feel centered and you feel really good, right? So it's not really only in the future, you also benefit immediately, but only after it becomes a habit, right? Okay, so happiness is very useful because it improves your health. Like I said, the happier nuns lived on average 11 more years. Happier people are also more collegial. They get along better in teams. And this is very important in organizational contexts because almost everything that we do in organizations is teamwork, right? Rarely are we now, doing individual work. You're not like guarding a lighthouse somewhere on an island all by yourself, right? We're all kind of collaborating with people on these mental creative tasks, right? And it turns out happier people are also more objective, are more creative. One of my papers published in 2002 showed this idea that happier people are more objective. So what we did in the study was we put people in a happy mood or a unhappy mood, and then we gave them an essay to read on caffeine consumption. We picked people who are heavy coffee users as participants in the study. So this caffeine consumption essay was very relevant to them because it's something that they consume a lot of caffeine. And we made sure that the essay had both positive things to say about caffeine and negative things to say about caffeine. Right? So imagine you're a participant in the study, you're either put in a positive mood or a negative mood, right? That's randomly decided for you, you have no control. And the way we did it is we asked the people in the positive mood condition to recall positive autobiographical memories. So write about something that, happened in your life that you feel good about, right? You feel positive about. Maybe you got married, right? Or you got a promotion. The unhappy condition, we had them do the opposite. We had them think of an event that made them unhappy, made them stressed out, maybe made them angry, right? And then we had everybody read this caffeine consumption essay, which had some positive things about caffeine, some negative things. In fact, it had 6 positive things about caffeine, like, for example, caffeine is actually shown to reduce Alzheimer's. Okay. Also had negative things about caffeine, that it could lead to ulcers, things like that. And then 15 minutes later, we had them do something for 15 minutes, unrelated to this. We had them recall as much information as they could from the essay. And what we found is that people in a positive mood, people who have been put in a positive mood, were even-handed in recalling both positive and negative information from the caffeine consumption essay, right? On average, let's say that they recalled 8 items or 12 items, but it wasn't like they only recalled the positive things or only the negative things. They were even-handed. They were more objective. But people in a negative mood favored recalling positive things. It's almost as if they were feeling bad about their life, because they've been asked to recall something bad in their life. And now they're trying to compensate for it by only focusing on positive things, right? You probably can relate to this a little bit. If you're feeling really down and out, you want to pep your mood up, right? You don't want to hear more negative news. You probably might put on, happy songs to listen to, etc. So that's kind of like what we saw here. So if you kind of extrapolate these findings to a real world context, your organizational context, what this means is that if you're in a good mood, if you're happy, you're probably going to take critical feedback a little bit better, right? And that feedback that helps you improve. Whereas if you're already feeling bad, you're probably going to be a little bit close to it. Happier people are also more creative. This is based off of a theory called broaden and build theory by Barbara Fredrickson. And what he finds is that when you're happier, you're like an open lotus. Okay, but if you're unhappy, you're like a closed tulip. So I'm going to kind of illustrate this with an example. So imagine that you fly to Paris, France, all right? And in one scenario, imagine that you land in Paris feeling really fresh and happy. You've had a good sleep, let's say on the flight, right? And you go to your hotel. It's only 11 a.m., imagine, all right? And you want to check in. The hotel says, I'm sorry, but your room will only be available at 2 p.m. But here are some areas that you can roam around near the hotel, fascinating areas with nice shops, little quaint bakeries, and so on and so forth. So why don't you just roam around, have lunch, come back. We'll try and get you in by 1 p.m., right? So you have a couple of hours to kill. Go to that. Now imagine in another scenario, you are unhappy, you're stressed out for whatever reason, maybe because you didn't sleep well, right? And the same thing happens. You are at the hotel by 11 a.m. and they tell you, hey, here's a map, go roam around, look around and have lunch and come back. In which of these two scenarios are you going to be more likely to take up the suggestion to roam around, right? The happy scenario or in the unhappy scenario, right? How many of you say happy scenario? All right, so vast majority, right? So that's exactly what Barbara Fredrickson finds is that when we're happier, and you can see it even in little kids, right? Like 2-year-olds, when they're happy, they're more exploratory. They'll go, farther away from their mom or their parents to explore, and they're curious about things that are unfamiliar with them. Now, sometimes it's a little bit dangerous. They want to poke their fingers into an electricity outlet or whatever, right? You have to prevent them from doing it, but they're more curious about the world. So happier people, turns out, are more curious, right? They're more, in a sense, stimulation seeking, more open to experiences. Whereas if you're feeling down and out, if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling anxious, stressed out, probably want to lay in your room, in your bathtub and kind of like, make yourself feel better, right? You're not as exploratory. So that idea that happy people are more curious is captured in this broaden part of the broaden and build theory. You're more broad, you're like the open lotus. Now, fast forward in the same scenario, example, right? You come back from Paris, you're back at Mumbai, back at BITSoM, and you hear that one of your good friends, maybe your cohort mate, is a Francophile, right? Loves things that are French. Now, if you've been more exploratory when you were in France, you took up the suggestion of the hotel staff to go and explore the quaint little bakeries, and you discovered, hey, there are these things called macarons, right? You said, like, so lovely, they're really yummy, and say that you never encountered those before in your life, right? You might actually kind of now recall that those were so good when you explored and when you tasted them. And you might think to yourself, okay, this cohort mate of mine is a Francophile. Why not give her a box of macarons, right? And you might so Google and find out that there's actually some places in Mumbai who sell those things. And then you might go and order them or buy them and then give it to your friend. right? You would not have done it had you never explored in the first place, right? If you just stuck to the hotel lobby and you were like, stressed out and you did not want to go out, you would have never encountered this thing called macaroons in your life. So the idea is that if in general you've led a happy life, you're more likely to have explored new things, tried new things, been more stimulation seeking. So in a sense, you have a bigger repertoire, right, of things to draw on in order to find a good solution or a better solution at least to a challenge or a problem you're facing currently. Does it make sense? Okay, so this is called the broaden and build theory by Barbara Fredrickson. Okay, so basically happier people are healthier, more collegial, more creative, more objective, and therefore they make better decisions. And so it's not surprising that happier organizations are more profitable, but at a personal level as well, at the individual level, not at the organizational level, at the individual level, happier people earn more money. And this is sometimes surprising for some people. I'll talk a little bit about some lay theories we have about the relationship between happiness and success. But there's one study that looked at quintiles, right? Not quartiles, like we saw in the non study, but quintiles, which is 20%. So top 20% of the happiest undergraduates when they joined a college to the least happy quintile, the 20, 20, 20, 20, 20. And they tracked them for the next 60 years, right? Huge study, longitudinal study. And what they found is the happiest quintile, happiest 20%, on average earn 32% more salary than the least happy quintile. Okay, so when we decide which college to go to or what program to go to, oftentimes we think about, if I join computer science or data analytics or what have you, artificial intelligence, I'm going to make more money. Okay, and it's totally valid to think like that. But one thing that we don't quite normally think about, most people don't think about, is that if I just lead a happier life, I'm going to earn more money. Okay, again, it's somewhat kind of counterintuitive even, and I'll talk a little bit about it in just a moment, that happiness has this effect, because we often think that it's stress and negativity and all that lead to happiness. But in fact, happiness has this positive effect. And it makes sense once you kind of drill down into the details, right? Happier people are healthier. So it just means you're going to show up for work more often. You're going to be more focused on the work because you're not distracted by unhappiness, right? You're going to be more objective. You're going to be more creative. In the long run, especially, you're going to be more productive. Okay, so I had you guys read the Guardian article, right? And I'm not going to have you answer these questions, but you'll remember from the article that there's a wide range of benefits for our performance, health, relationships. In that article too, they talk about another study that showed that happier younger adults go on to earn more money later on. And this is important too, right? To the extent that we want people who are civic-minded or altruistic, pro-social, as we call it, right? Happier people do more voluntary work and so on and so forth. And in terms of health, you're less likely to catch a cold or a virus. And this was true more recently as well. This article is from about 10 years ago. More recently in COVID, it turned out that they replicated these results, that you're less likely to have contracted COVID if you're a happy person. All right, so this brings me to this kind of somewhat counterintuitive aspect to all of this that I mentioned a little while ago. So I'm going to summarize results from a study that my colleagues and I did, in which we asked people to imagine a scenario. We asked people to, these are participants in the study, we asked them to imagine that they were in the sales department of an organization and they were tasked with selling 10,000 widgets, right? Widgets are just anything. You can replace widgets with whatever it is that you want to replace with. Let's say steps. All right, so you're tasked with selling 10,000, that's your target. Half the participants were assigned to a self condition. The other participants were assigned to a manager or other condition. Okay, so let's talk about the self condition first. You had to sell 10,000 widgets and you came 2,000 widgets short. That is, you only sold 8,000 widgets, okay, the past month. And we asked these participants to imagine now you have the possibility that your boss writes you a negative email. So the boss writes you something like, hey, you came up 2,000 widgets short. This is not good news. If you continue to go this way, then forget about your bonus and promotion, even your job might be at risk. You might get fired, okay? Or you can get a positive email from your boss that's encouraging and say something like, successes and failures are cyclical. This past month wasn't great for you, right? But I'm sure that you're going to make up for it in the next month. You're probably going to end up selling 12,000 units, okay? And make up the deficit in the past month. And we simply ask participants, which of these two would you prefer to receive? Okay, not just prefer to receive, which of these two would be more motivating for you for the next month? It's going to make you feel like pumped up and say, you know what? I'm going to prove that I'm a good salesperson, right? And you can see here that there is a overwhelming preference for the positive rather than the negative worded email, right? Now, for the other half of the participants, we kind of like switch it around. We tell them that somebody is reporting to you, who's a salesperson, and they've only managed to sell 8,000 units, okay, out of 10,000. And here are two options. A positively worded email. You can imagine the email being very similar to the one that I described to you in the self-condition, or a negatively worded one. Which of these two emails do you think is going to be more motivating for the other person? And here you can see that there is a overwhelming preference for sending out negatively worded email, right? Any thoughts, any guesses on why it is that we tend to choose positive for ourselves, but want to transmit or send out negatively worded emails? Yeah, Gayatri?
Sometimes we're biased towards our feelings, so we want to feel good, but when we want to motivate others, we feel like, okay, maybe giving them a hard hit of reality might motivate them to work harder.
Yeah. So why is it that we don't have that intuition for ourselves? So I don't know if we'll explicitly discuss this in this class, but surely you'll come across this concept in the 2 years that you spent at BITSoM. There is something called self-positivity bias that all of us are susceptible to. We think of ourselves as being more noble, more kind, more responsible, etc., than we can think the average person is. We give ourselves the benefit of doubt more than we tend to do for other people. So when we look inward, we think to ourselves, okay, the only reason I would not have achieved this target is because I had good reasons to not work hard, or actually work hard and luck didn't favor me. So there's nothing really wrong with me as such, or in terms of my intentions, in terms of my commitment to achieving my goals. So when you receive that negative email, you feel like you're already kind of like feeling bad, and now there's more badness coming to you from your boss, right? Whereas when the boss sends you a positive email, you feel like, yeah, I feel seen. Okay, the boss recognizes who I truly am. Okay, but we don't necessarily give that benefit of doubt to other people. Okay, that's what we think is going on here. Anyway, so the point is that despite all of those positive effects of happiness that I talked about earlier, it turns out that not all of us have the same intuition about happiness, especially when it comes to other people. We think that it's unhappiness, it's stress, it's pushing them into a corner, right? Back to their wall, their backs to the wall. That's what's going to motivate other people. So we seem to hold these kind of dual conflicting beliefs or theories about the influence of happiness on productivity in our head. For ourselves, yes, when I'm happier, I'm more productive. But for other people, I'm not so sure. Okay. So why do we have this negativity promotes happiness or productivity hypothesis theory? One reason could be that it turns out that happiness does promote productivity. Unhappiness, sorry, I should say. Unhappiness does, or negativity does promote productivity, but only in the short term, right? So if you have an adrenaline kind of burst, I'm sure that you all have experienced this, right? Where you waited until the last minute for an exam, okay? Or something got pushed to the front, right? Somebody says, your boss is so sorry, but you have to do this, get this job done, okay? And you feel this adrenaline rush, and you might pull an all-nighter or really work hard, right? So we all have had that experience, and those experiences kind of stand out because they were like really intense, and so that might be a reason why you think that negativity promotes productivity. But it turns out that if you only rely on everything becoming an emergency and only then you work, right? If that is your pattern, you're probably not going to be as successful as somebody who's like regular at their job, right? Who studies, for example, for exams, etc. As and when those topics are discussed in class, rather than wait until the very last minute. Okay, this is another reason why you might think that unhappiness promotes productivity, because you dislike what you do for your job, right? How many of you guys love what you did before you came to this one? Okay, good, great, perfect. Okay, how many of you disliked it? Okay, not necessarily hated it, but yeah, so it seems like maybe 50–60% loved it, maybe 30% did not necessarily like it. And there's another 20% who doesn't give a damn about this question, or maybe you have no work experience, I'm not sure. Okay, so if you do not like what you do for your work, right, then you're not going to be motivated to do it on your own, right? It's only when, you know, something becomes an emergency or your boss pushes you or something like that, only then do you end up working. And so that's been your experience, then it makes sense that you end up concluding that it's negativity that promotes productivity, right? Okay, so here's another reason. How many of you know someone who's not a nice human being, right? Who's generally irritable, generally angry, and not pleasant to hang out with, but is quite successful? How many of you guys know somebody like that? All right. Okay, so you might know people who are actually nice, who are also successful, right? How many of you know people like that? Okay, so it seems like, you know, actually there's more of those kind of people, but you know, but it turns out that our mind tends to remember negative things more than positive things, okay? And we'll discuss this a little bit later in class, but it's called negativity bias. And so when you kind of like think about, okay, what is the relationship between happiness or unhappiness and success? If it comes more easily to mind, these people who are unhappy or mean-spirited and productive or successful, then you might conclude that, okay, you know, I know a lot of people like that, right? And so it must be the case that you're more successful when you're unhappy. All right, so just to kind of recap what we have discussed thus far, happiness doesn't just feel good, it's also functional in many different ways we talked about, right? We nevertheless sometimes might harbor this misconception that negativity promotes productivity, especially for other people, and something to watch out for, okay? So here's another kind of reason or way in which, you know, I think, at least to me, it makes sense to think about the relationship between happiness and productivity. Okay, so in reality, okay, if you look at when people are most productive, there is something called the Yerkes-Dodson law, it's called. Okay, this is how you spell it. Are you guys able to see it from the back, what I'm writing? Not really. So this is because these markers are not great. Okay, it's Yerkes-Dodson law, Yerkes-Dodson law. And here we have on the y-axis productivity. And on the x-axis, we have stress or anxiety or pressure, or whatever you want to call it, okay? And it turns out, this is low, let's say, and this is high. It turns out that the graph is like this. So at really low levels of productivity, sorry, low levels of stress, productivity is low. High levels of stress, productivity is low as well. So you need some level of stress, some level of feeling nervous. Maybe the other side of the coin is to call it excitement, right? You need to be somewhat excited about this thing that you're asked to do for you to be really productive. At really low levels, you don't really have a lot of interest in it. That's why you don't have any pressure at all, right? At high levels, obviously, it's bad, okay? And this might make you feel that, hey, it's not happiness that is good for productivity. It's not unhappiness either. It's like being in a neutral state, okay? But that would be an erroneous conclusion. Here's why, okay? It's actually happiness that improves productivity. And the reason is that think of your work life, right? How many of you guys experience quite high levels of stress in your work? Right? Look around, it's almost everyone, all right? So the fact is, and this is going to be true for the rest of your life, by the way, okay? If anything, it's going to be even higher after this, your stress levels, because you're entering an era where it's going to be more chaotic, more uncertain. So you're already here, right? Very high levels of stress, Okay? Your challenge is not, okay, how do I get even more stress, right? How do I have even more stress in my life? Your challenge is, how do I get to this point where you're already at this point? Okay, your challenge is going to kind of rein in your stress. And that's where happiness comes into the picture. If you're feeling happy, if you're feeling centered, if you're feeling sorted, your life is good, your relationships are good, your health is good, you're in good mental headspace, then that combined with the high levels of stress that are the default or the normal kind of state of affairs, right, is going to help you rein in that. Does it make sense? That's why happiness is important, that it's a buffer against reality. It's a buffer against the high levels of stress that you're going to experience in your life. By the way, even the 2 years in BITSoM are going to be stressful, okay? Just heads up, you already probably know it, but just confirming that that's how it's going to be. This is why happiness is important. Okay, so last topic. So this is kind of getting to Gayatri's question, what is happiness, how do you measure it, etc. So I'm going to go through this really quickly so that we have about 7-8 minutes for the quiz. Toward the end, do you have enough hard copies?
Check the answers.
Okay, why don't you guys check it one last time, okay? If it doesn't work, then you're going to have to get the hard copy. This is only the people who weren't authorized before, okay? You're able to do it?
It's there.
Everyone's able to do it? Perfect. Okay. This is people who earlier couldn't do it, right? And what's your name? You don't have a name, Swagati. Swagati. Swagatika. People are getting very creative with it. What does it mean? Welcome, Tika. Okay, all right. Okay, so you have 10 copies though, right? Just in case somebody can't do it. All right, so let's discuss what happiness is. So happiness is obviously a positive emotion. It's a state you want to be in, right? And you can think about 4 different kind of sources of positivity. One is pleasure, right? Eating something tasty, listening to something beautiful, seeing something nice, getting a massage. I like massages at least, right? All of those are pleasure. The thing with pleasure is that they tend to be short-lived, right? The 100th bite of a chocolate is not going to be as tasty as the first bite. Neither should it be, I think, right? Because otherwise you're going to not stop, and that's going to end up resulting in bad effects. Okay, so pleasure, positivity, these are positive feelings. And it turns out that there are 10, 12, at least different kinds of positive emotional states we can be in. Love is one of them, right? Laughter, awe, gratitude, serenity, joy, pride, so there's lots of different positive emotional states you can exist in. And if you're asked by somebody, how happy are you? When you're in love, you're probably going to say very happy, right? When you're feeling really proud, you're going to say, I'm very happy, and so on. So this is another source. And then there's meaning and purpose I want to talk a little bit about, because those are interesting and they are different from what I think most animals might experience, right? So as human beings, we are capable of experiencing meaning. And I'm going to define meaning. This is my definition, not the dictionary definition. Meaning as the satisfaction from helping other people out. Right? I'm sure that you've experienced this, particularly with your close relatives or friends. You do something good for them, you feel good in return, right? So if you have a little niece or a nephew who's feeling really hungry or wants a piece of chocolate, and you actually don't have enough money to buy 2 pieces of chocolate, but you buy it for them and give it to them. You sacrifice your own hunger or your desire in order to feed them. Okay, so that's meaning. And it can actually come at a cost to your own pleasure, but it makes you feel good by doing something good for other people, right? So that's meaning. And purpose, I'm going to define again my definition, right? Purpose is the satisfaction from doing something that's intrinsically motivating, right? So let's say that you play the guitar, right? Or you sing, okay? And it might actually be somewhat aversive for you to take the guitar out and figure out your finger movements for a particular kind of chord change, right? Because it's not coming naturally to you. You're going to have to practice it over and over and over again till it becomes automatic, right? So it might actually be aversive for you to get a practice, but you might still do it because it is helping you achieve a larger aim later on, right? You become a better guitar player. So that I call purpose, okay? Satisfaction from doing something well, from being from experiencing what might be called a flow state. Have you guys heard of this term flow state? Right? So that's what I call purpose. And the thing with pleasure, especially pleasure, but also positivity, is that it tends to be short-lived. But meaning and purpose can actually continue to deliver a lot of happiness in the long run. If you're good to other people, you feel good in the moment, but they then want to do something good for you in return. So you set yourself up in these virtuous kind of cycles. Same thing with purpose, right? If you're good at doing something, it's going to reap a lot of benefits in the future for you, right? So you can think about happiness, the course objective, as being maximizing, for those of you who are kind of financially inclined, right? Mathematically inclined, pleasure, positivity, meaning and purpose, recognizing that sometimes meaning and purpose come at a cost to pleasure and positivity, right? So you're going to have to sacrifice your own hunger in order to feed somebody else, but it's going to contribute to meaning. So it becomes a little more complicated for human beings to maximize happiness because it's not simple, right? It's not just pleasure, it's also all of these things. One concept I want to very quickly highlight here is that you want to prioritize happiness, but not pursue it. So chasing happiness too directly actually lowers your happiness levels. Okay, so when you want to be happy all the time, you're comparing your current state with where you want to be. And that then makes you unhappy about feeling unhappy. Okay, so you don't want to chase happiness, but you want to prioritize it. You want to adopt habits that have been shown to increase happiness. So this is a quote by Henry David Thoreau, who says happiness is like a butterfly. The more you chase it, the more it will elude you. But if you turn your attention to other things, it will come and sit softly on your shoulder. Okay, so why does pursuing happiness lower happiness? Because once you set a goal up as human beings, we tend to also immediately, automatically monitor our progress toward the goal. If you want to get 10 pounds lighter, for example, right? If it's a very important goal for you, you'll start to notice, the difference between where you are versus where you want to be. For many goals, like losing weight, that's actually a good thing. But there are some goals, happiness is one of them, where chasing it too explicitly actually lowers your chance of achieving. It's similar to sleep, right? If you want to get a good night's sleep, you don't want to be obsessed about falling asleep, right? And say, hey, I almost fell asleep, right? If you do those kinds of things, it's probably going to lead to insomnia. Likewise, love, I'll talk about love quite a bit later on. But if you chase the object of your love too intensely, right, they're probably not going to value you as much. Okay, so you lower the chances of achieving love. So happiness is similar. So we want to prioritize happiness, but not pursue it. So, okay, so here's the definition of happiness. I think of it as an umbrella term that includes pleasure, positive emotions, purpose and meaning, but also sometimes negative experience, right? So here's an example, right? I talked about working out. How many of you guys like the soreness that comes from a workout, right? So it's satisfying to feel like, yeah, like a little bit, it actually hurts me a little bit, but you feel like must be because you really push yourself, right? At the gym. How about roller coaster rides? How many of you guys like that? Okay, so you might actually be like anxious and say almost like, get me out of this, get me out of this, but it still is kind of exciting at least, if not actually happiness. How about horror movies? Right? Similar thing. There was a study done where they gave these watchers of horror movies two knobs. They asked them to turn one up if they're enjoying the movie and the other one up if they were scared. Okay, and horror movies both go together. So you're both scared and enjoying at the same time, right? Which kind of suggests that sometimes as human beings, you like negative experiences. Okay, so that's the idea. All right, so last concept in 1 minute, and then we'll do the quiz. Okay, how do we measure happiness? Turns out that the simplest way to measure happiness is to ask people directly how happy you are, right? On a 10-point scale. All right. And the issue that sometimes some of us have is that can't be valid, that can't be reliable, because people, may not know how happy they are. It seems too subjective a measure, right? So what people did for about 10 years is to look at more objective measures of happiness. They looked at people's brain scans. Right, it turns out that happier brains look a little bit different from less happy brains. Okay, and I'll talk about some of those differences later on, but some parts of the brain are more active. You can look at blood samples. Certain hormones like serotonin, dopamine, etc. are higher when you're happy. Other stress hormones like cortisol tend to be lower when you're happy. And so if somebody says they are 9 or 10, that they should have more serotonin, dopamine, less of cortisol, right? In fact, that's what they found. Okay. So you can also ask other people how happy you are, right? So you may not know how happy you are, but other people can surely tell. Or you may know how happy you are, but you may not want to honestly report it because you want to signal to other people you're happier than you actually are, for example. So other people might be more reliable as reporters of your happiness. So that's been done too. In general, the bottom line is that self-reports are the simplest. Just ask people how happy they are. They're also very valid and reliable. It turns out people are A, aware, and B, they're honest. By and large, there are some 10% of the people who, I don't know, are not totally honest. But just like we know if you're in love, just like we know if you're hungry, just like we know if you're tired, right? Happiness is no different in that regard, is that you know when you're happy is the conclusion. All right, so this then means that we can actually measure happiness, which we're going to do in the next session, at the beginning of next session. So no need to send the quality survey. Let's just go to the quiz. It's 11:26, guys. I'm really sorry, but we're going to have to extend by about 1 minute beyond half time. And in the next 30 seconds, if you're not able to access the quiz, please let us know and we will give you the hard copy. Okay, otherwise you have 5 minutes to finish the quiz. And best of luck. Yeah, we can start the quiz. Yeah.